And then just for the background, I've been here about 5 years, and I started on the sales side. So I really didn't come to network until about 2 years ago, January of, I lose the time, January of 16? Yeah, January of 16, I think sounds right, February. When we first started, the approach was we were going to be an asset-light, I think people-light group. We had a table carved out right there, and the view was we could stitch together a lot of vendors and offer a network through basically software that would enable us to serve populations. I think a lot of that is still probably true, but I think the big thing we overvalued is the quality of those vendors and the configurability. And so we started with MagnaCare, which was a Goldman Sachs property then at the time, or shortly to become owned by Goldman Sachs. And the benefit of a rental network was the fact that we had basically every provider in the network, 82 of 84 hospitals, 40,000 plus physicians. And for the exchange, Obamacare, the ACA, PPACA, when it was passed, most people thought this product line was going to be, I think most carriers thought this product line was going to be a pain in their ass. And they didn't staff for it, and they really didn't, they weren't reborn as companies to serve this product line. It was kind of like, do we want to add this or not? And in the early days, it was like a biological reaction. People would call in like they had found dry land, being lost at sea, because we'd answer a call. And then, I'd never seen this before, but they'd literally get their friends to sign up in their office while we were talking to them, because they were afraid that we weren't going to answer the next call, because the amount of people available to actually truly serve these people, I think, was very different. And there are products out there even today that make you question, is this really a strategy or not? So anyway, we had this big broad network, and it was great if you were a consumer. And one of the things that people, I think, they've always given us some hard time whether we lose money or not. And I always like, the money has gone to other people's healthcare, which, in the big indictment of the world, if that's what we go down for, giving extra healthcare out, fine, I'll go down on that ship. But that became unsustainable for a variety of reasons. But we didn't learn that right away, too. So, year one, we have MagnaCare, we go into New York. It is an amazing product in New York. The only thing we don't have right, maybe thankfully so, is we weren't number one in price. So we only get about 17,000 members. We've been number one in price, we might have gotten 50,000 and really been blown out of the water with our MLR. But so you have 17,000 members, and when people are calling in, it's like, oh my gosh, you're answering, and wow, they've got a lot of doctors and physicians and hospitals, et cetera. We roll up with the same strategy in New Jersey the next year. We want to start going to more states. We still haven't learned what the MLR is. Claims don't come in right away. They take 6 months. Fausto can tell you this better, but they take a little while to even know how your market's going to perform. So there's a real lag in this business of information. It's not like the stock market where you get it today. You got to wait. So we roll out with QualCare in New Jersey, and we think, hey, same strategy. We're going to do well, et cetera. We haven't learned the price thing yet. So we have now QualCare and MagnaCare 2 years in, and we have a little bit of a membership problem in New Jersey. The diagnosis of that, maybe you should talk to Mario, but my view is we kind of split the state in a weird way. So brokers don't really want to learn, like, which county am I selling Oscar in? Like, I sell one product, and that's easy. In New York, it was different because we had all downstate 9 counties. So you weren't like, are you in Putnam or Rockland? You were like, we've got you covered. In New Jersey, you kind of had to know our map, which not everybody knew. And at the same token, we hadn't priced best yet either. We haven't learned power of price. So it's, again, 2 very broad networks. Frankly, then if you'd come to Oscar, great service, great coverage, almost all the hospitals are in. And then we get to the first problem, which is the MLR feedback is coming, and it's not so great. It's in the 120s, and we can break that down, but what we're collecting in premium, we're spending more than that in healthcare. And this doesn't hit us right away. So you kind of already built infrastructure around this. So now and this is where Brian West also comes in, I think does some really great things to save us ultimately, but how do you change that ship? And you can't just leave, you can't shut down a product line, you have to transition. So this insight's coming to us, and a couple things happen that somewhat make it worse and enable us to kind of break through. One is Health Republic fails. And we have to brace for 11,000 members, I think it is, in November of 2015 that just come to Oscar. And if you know how enrollment patterns work, that's not a month that people show up. That's a special qualifying period, typically. Maybe it's the beginning of open enrollment. But this was one of our major co-ops going bankrupt, being shut down in a managed shutdown by the Department of Financial Services, and then telling Oscar, you're going to take these members and you're going to honor their deductibles. And by the way, we don't know what their deductibles are. So we see that and we're like, oh shit, our business is going to grow by 30% in 1 month. It's not costs. Right now, the unit costs are not working in our favor. And with these big, broad networks, so they're going to all want to come over. And we don't operational how to make this work because they're not even telling us how much of the deductible we have to honor or not. So that really scares us, and that scares us in New Jersey too, where if you've tracked these co-ops, I think 23 of 24 or 24 of 24 have all failed. I think the only one left, no offense if I've got them wrong, is suing the government to keep themselves around. But the business model is not a good one. And so around this time, that happens, and then I remember this discussion, and then you got to be careful with the video and everything. But the view was, like, let's take MSK for a second. Very important cancer hospital. Do you want to raise premiums by 6% to keep MSK in? That was a discussion we had, a business case, if you will. Very interesting business case. I could see it going both ways. At that time, we were really circling on the value of, and which I think is today, and it hasn't really changed, it's been articulated a couple times, but we want to bring affordable health care to everybody. So one hospital and everyone's going to pay 6%. And we ultimately decide we're going to remove them because of the 6% everyone has to pay. Now that has distributed impacts. There are some members that's devastating for. And the way we handled it at the time was we gave them long continuities of care, which the contracting team knows what this means, but 180 days to resolve your case. If still not resolved, medical necessity will allow you to stay. But that by and large, we're not going to be out offering this in a sales context. So we start realizing, man, we need to be able to prune, adjust, manage our network. Rental networks don't allow this. Not allowed. Okay? We talk about why MSK was allowed, but by and large, no, you can't do that. And so we get to this point where, okay, the unit costs aren't working for us. They're dropping like flies, and people are just kind of showing up on our shore, or potentially tipping over the boat, and we can't manage them. And not only the MSK thing, like we can't get provider data from them. We can't get medical records easily. They don't work for us. They work for a rental network. And when we call them, they don't know who we are. And when we launch with them, and someone shows up and goes, hey, I got Oscar, they're like, who? I don't take that. So operationally, what was the initial idea, the inception, isn't playing out quite with the assumptions. And the first kind of real breakthrough, and I may be off on the timing in terms of what comes first, so you can double check with Mario, but we decided to do a deal with Tenet to go into California, ultimately in Texas. We do PHN in California, but Tenet's kind of the first break of let's go and have our own network. Let's partner with somebody who's doing our own. PHN in California is not quite that. They're an intermediate that still does the contracting, but it's not a rental network. We kind of have a network deal with them, and they do the contracting. In Texas, it's Tenet, and they're saying you bought a narrow network. You get really low rates from us, and you get a narrow network, period. And they also get some other things, like I get to participate in other markets, you have to offer me a reasonable participation agreement, et cetera. And that's the first deal that I think really helps us, and at the same time we decide we got to do this in New York. We can do this in Texas, we got to do this in New York. So we start a process of meeting with all the major hospital systems, who will work with us, and Oscar's still a child at that point, but it's a rising, growing brand. Who wants to partner up in New York, one of the most competitive, most paid attention to markets in healthcare? They're all important, but it's a major ask. And we go out to all of them, and in the end, Sinai becomes our partner. And on Long Island, we don't get the Northwell deal out of the gate. And, we can talk about the reasons why, but we inevitably get them. And we want to partner with LIHN, the Long Island Health Network, which is a series of hospitals that have come together to form a network. And Montefiore, and a few other groups, and then we have to do a direct contract with a lot of physicians. And that's kind of when I leave sales and enter the network contracting world. And the mandate is, can you get us, because we're losing the 40,000 providers from MagnaCare, can you get us 15,000 in 5 months? You get the employed, as you all know, from a hospital. It has employed physicians, it has associated physicians, it has IPAs, but even the IPAs were like verbal agreements. And if anyone who's managed an IPA, an Independent Physician Association, just because you send me a letter doesn't mean I'm joining. You got to sign, I'm busy, I'm retiring, I'm moving to Florida, whatever. It's not a guarantee. So when I entered the network team, and there's Brad Husser and Stephen Abramson there, it's go get a lot of doctors, because our next fear, we've got these big hospital deals. We do kind of a funny champagne toast in July, even though the network's not finished, but we got the major marquee hospitals. We got to go get 5, 10, 15,000 if you can doctors in 5 months before you launch OE. OE launches 11/1. So go. And anyway, there's a whole process there where we send out mailers, we check on admission criteria, we just try to cultivate a lot of physicians that will join the network. And we do a fairly good job. The problem is we don't know what we're contracting with. We don't know where they admit. We haven't learned yet like what physicians will likely refer to a hospital and which hospital. And if you bring them in and you've got Sinai as your partner, but they're a Pres-B affiliated doc, you're creating a total nightmare for your members. So we're learning all this. Reber was at Bridgewater. He's like, hey, I'm interested in Oscar. Bring him in. He starts as a consultant, becomes head of network. He has the brain with a lot of people, Julian, Cole. We can build this system. We can visualize all of this. We just need some time, and we can all do this together. So the beginning of it really is this whole network scorecard. I remember this like early meetings with this group of Foreman and Tannen who still emails us today about bringing people into the network, where we're making them enter things in Google Sheets. And these people are not Google Sheets people. And so we're literally asking to categorize every ASC, dialysis center. Where do they refer? Where are their doctors affiliated? We're building it at a granular level. Like, how does healthcare work? And we're really starting almost from the bottom up in many ways. How do you stitch this thing together so all the threads connect and connect in a good way? Anyway, long story short, that goes fairly well. And we launch, and the big thing at the time everyone was worried about is how many doctors can we say we have in the network? Because the industry is still, I think, a little bit, they overvalue the number versus the synchrony, right? They just want to hear a big number. We got 1 million doctors. Doesn't matter if they answer the call. Doesn't matter if you have an appointment in 9 months. Doesn't matter if they refer you to somebody who doesn't exist. We just want to have a big number. And I think that's going to change over time, but we were still, playing in that game because we were afraid of a 40,000 physician network dropping down to 5,000, which it didn't. It dropped to 15, 17,000, which is still a lot. I mean, you need the committed few. You don't need everybody, and they don't even know what's going on. But so we were working through that, and as we launched that, we really realized that, hey, we can build our own networks. In Tenet, we're thankfully, in San Antonio, we're priced number 1 out of the gate. And so we get 30,000 members in year 1 in San Antonio, Texas. We get the amount of members it took us 2 years to get in one market that had really no idea we were coming. I mean, there was marketing and all of that, but the by and large is you could have picked really any city in the country with enough people in it and a number 1 price and a good enough product that you'd have catalyzed the business. So that's like a big moment of insight for us. And so it's 2016 and we get to this really interesting moment, which I think, I love Mario, but he goes, we don't have a sales problem anymore, which I mean, he may want to retract now because we're going through all kinds of how do we grow these product lines, and et cetera. But the real problem is the unit costs. It's not the sales. We went from 17 to 37 to 150,000 lives in 3 years in healthcare. This is not social media accounts. These are monthly premiums, from individual consumers who are not buying healthcare. Probably the hardest premium to sell in the country is you're going to pay the check premium. Somebody else paying the check's a much easier premium, generally speaking, to sell. So we have this moment of reflection of how are we going to get unit costs right? How are we going to really scale the business? And we take a year, and anyone who tells you, well, Oscar lost membership and all that, we were retooling for a year where membership growth wasn't the number 1 thing. And in fact, in many ways, we've always wanted members. It was almost scary to have more members because they were costing you $1.25 per dollar, and that doesn't pay for any of the operations. It's purely the unit cost problem. So we then begin this very strategic, very systematic focus on unit costs. And as we're going through that, there are a couple things. One, the New Jersey problem, as I mentioned, around the co-ops no longer being around and us getting members. We've left New Jersey. And the problem there is that sometimes when you leave, they put you on a timeout for 5 years. And so we were very nervous about leaving markets. We tried not to, and that's why we bronze plans in certain places. But we left New Jersey, and we left Dallas. We left the bronze plan on the shelf because just the unit costs were out of whack. And so we started to then say, let's build it back up again, like a strategy layer 2. Where can we go and get great unit costs, build the network, get membership, get price position, right? Because in this product category, price position matters. And a lot of our expansion work today is around partnering with people who want to be first, second in price. And in some ways, it's a working from certain assumptions as opposed to how much is going to cost me. It's what can we get the cost to? And we take, okay, what does the market look like in terms of current premiums? Where do we think it's going to be next year based on existing raises? And then how could Oscar price to being 1 or 2? And hey, system partner, if we go in an exclusive or narrow or just generally a focused partnership where it's going to be you and us and maybe you and us and one other. Can you get us to these unit costs, which get us to this premium, which get us to this amount of membership? And that's the conversation we've been building on for the last couple of years. We did that fairly well in New York this past year. New Jersey, we kind of came back under the same rental network strategy. And I think this is, where it's okay to have a couple bets out there and you can't do everything all at once. Rebuilding New Jersey is going to be a lot of work for us. And so we have to think about when do we do that and what's the timing around that and with whom, and if everything we're doing is that the number one thing. So these are discussion points that we're always having. LA, we still work with PHN. They're, again, the intermediarily contract with us. What we lose there is the freedom to move back and forth between providers and add hospitals, add doctors, remove them, et cetera. What I think we've mostly gained, and people can disagree, is stable MLRs. And a lot of that relates to a contractual element we have with them where we pay them around a target MLR and they get bonuses thereabouts. And I think a lot of it also is around the culture of California where when you're out of network, they're not gouging you like some of these other states. So that's probably been a stable place. And so why rebuild something that, I think today is 45,000 or almost 20% of our entire membership. So do we need to go in there and, futz with that now when we're in a pretty stable place? San Francisco, anyway, I'm just going to pass on that. I think in general we did that more around early investors, and I don't think we've solved that Rubik's Cube well yet. Someday we will, but it's a little bit early. San Antonio, then Austin, it follows right up with number one price. We got something working well in Texas, and they're going to come for us. The competition's going to come for us in Texas. We're at 100,000 members. We price number one again by and large in Austin. So you got San Antonio, you've got Austin, number one price. You're at 100,000 members. It's incredible. It's really incredible. I think. I don't know the exact exchange lives on there, but we're probably at 10 to 15% of all lives, maybe more in Texas. And that's only being in 2 cities, crazy. So that goes out well. Cleveland is a little bit of a differentiated bet. And I think it's okay. Again, it's okay to have differentiated bets in network strategy because if you're wrong, it takes a while to fix it. You learn a lot while you're possibly wrong. And to really address healthcare at a 330 million level, you have to have diverse ways of thinking and multiple bets going. There's not going to be just one strategy that wins it all. And so the Cleveland Clinic bet was, let's partner with one of the most respected, highest rated clinical organizations in the country. And let's see if through like an osmotic process we can learn from each other. We have some things to maybe teach or show, and we have a lot to learn, obviously, in terms of clinical and operational management of a premier health system. And so that's a different bet than everything I've just described because we're not necessarily number one in price. We have the number one facility within probably 100 radial miles. No disrespect to anyone who's 80 miles out, but people will drive. They will come in for this type of brand. And as a result of that, we haven't taken the largest share of market, but we've shown you can still build a very big book of business having the premier system. And as we think about other product lines, does it open the door to maybe a commercial or group product? Medicare Advantage, we're starting to think about now. Well, do we want the premier system? Is it all a unit cost game? These are discussions to have. But it's good to have that extra bet in the portfolio, if you will, so that we can learn from it and decide what makes sense. And then Nashville is another one of these differentiated bets that's kind of now, I think we're just going to adopt it. But it started with a partnership exploration with Humana. And what we do something really big with Humana, and at least the storyline today, whatever this is, October 30th, 2018, is no. We dated, we tried it out for a year, we're parting ways. But the original premise was maybe a big partnership with a huge payer where we're taking on market geographies or product lines that payer may not see itself as most competitive in or may not want to build what we're building in. Maybe they can set us up to do that, and we can gain through their existing licenses, through their existing networks, a lot more reach. And there still is a lot of potential for that. That's not off the table. It's just not right now. And by the way, there are a lot of people like Humana that we could do it with. And so when you think about all of that and you add that all up, Oscar, I think, still today has a bunch of these different options we've learned from. In Nashville, Humana's going to roll off and it'll be our network, and we'll decide, do we want to kind of just leave it as is, kind of like New Jersey, and we'll figure it out later, or do we want to go rebuild it, or do we want to then partner with another big academic system, Vanderbilt or whatever, and say, hey, we're going to serve this community together. Today, the answer is we're going to probably by and large leave it. We'll do some direct contracting, but that the opportunities will be there. I guess maybe I'll make one comment about 19 and let people ask questions. We've got 5 minutes. Does that sound fair? Yeah. So then what's going to happen, and we'll see if it's true in a year. But what's going to happen 1 year forward from today, we're going to go try to do 8 to 10 markets on an individual basis, and we're going to try to get 2 Medicare Advantage markets done. And The 8 to 10 are about membership growth under a strategy we think is by and large working. This is the conversation. Hey, can we get first in price, second in price? Can we get unit costs that we all agree to? And then can we go price to win? That's kind of the playbook. We can a couple little tweaks, but by and large, that's Broadway for the company strategy right now. Hey, let's go and do these 8 to 10 major markets. We know the top 30 markets in the world right now, in the country right now for this product line. Let's go and let's endeavor together to win. The other advantage we have is we're working with a lot of these major systems already. So instead of, hey, let's get to know each other, let's go to 4 markets, let's kind of brutalize each other on the negotiations. Hey, we've worked together for a year or 2. Let's do 4 markets together. Are you okay on these principles? What do you need? What do we need? Can we single stroke this thing in a 4-page amendment? That's kind of what will be more of the conversation now for the 8 to 10. And we think there's a real shot we can double membership again. I mean, even as we're going to grow into 19, and we don't know what the numbers will be, but somewhere between 300 and 500. We're going to then add another layer of growth onto that and basically double. We're in 9 individual markets right now, targeting to literally double it. Crazy. And going at the bigger cities now too. I mean, some of them are the big ones. It's not just the smaller ones. So I think that'll be the broad strategy there. And then Medicare Advantage is a learning year. And what we're seeing right now is probably a partnership with a group kind of like a Cleveland Clinic, a brand that knows how to do it, that does it, that wants to say, let's draw a line of you're good at this, we're good at that, and let's keep it there. And then maybe more of an integrated hands-up one for Oscar, where we're there contracting at the hospital, the physician, the ASC, the SNF, all of the independent components level of that network, so we can learn it more viscerally. And I think that the theme, if I was, I've been here 5 years now, is whenever we kick off these big joint ventures, we inevitably need it to work a certain way to make our technology work, the speed at which we do business work, the brand, and the way we want to treat the customer. And so I always am nervous of a long-term scenario where we're dividing the world into 2 halves and saying we're not going to give you feedback here and you're not going to give us feedback there. I think a more integrated approach inevitably becomes necessary. But that's my view. It's not necessarily everyone's view, and that's for people to debate and take what they want from it. Okay, got a couple minutes for questions. Anything that people want to ask, talk about? Is this helpful? And you should go get these stories yourselves. Hey, what was the story of this? I heard this crazy thing from Mike Hopko. Is that true? Because more of life is the friction around the story than one storyline, and all the nuance and the color, the articulation, where you can then build your own narrative. And ideally, that's our narrative. It's a shared narrative. So when I say these things, I hope others agree. And if they don't, I'd love to hear about it, because we're just trying to do it as one big arc.
Can you talk a little bit more about Dallas and why that didn't work, and if we're thinking about going into Dallas again?
Yeah, I mean, the big problems, so multiple systems when we started with not good unit costs. And Dallas is a big city with a lot of members. So Dallas is a great place to do business, and Texas is great. So I think we'll eventually crack the code. But when we set out with our partners there, the problem we had was we just can't get those unit costs to a place that it works for us. And we probably had a really good network, but we can't price it well. And so when you can't price it well, you have a problem where you're just spending money to be in that market. And what we're doing today is trying to get a couple of those key partners to lower their unit costs so we can go back at it in the way that we've done it in the past. And I guess one other comment I'd make, even though I do love choice in healthcare, the one concern that people have at times when you have multiple systems, it's really hard to figure out what's not working because kind of everyone's pointing at each other. And so there's sometimes some nice clarity when you have one partner with one network design and things aren't working. If you've got like a leak in the faucet, you can call the person whose faucet is and say, hey, I got a leak. And what happens when you have multiple systems involved, that was a bad referral, that physician didn't make the right recommendation, that's not our physician. So you get into these whodunit type problems more. I don't think that's an insurmountable obstacle, but we had that problem a little bit in Dallas, and the biggest problem, unit costs.
Is that a similar problem in San Francisco? You didn't really talk about Bay Area much.
I mean, this might be controversial. I think we went to San Francisco because our investors are there. And, what do I know, seriously? But you have to have a strategy to win, not necessarily, that strategy to me didn't sound like strategy to win. And of all the markets, kind of like New York, San Francisco, it's a competitive ecosystem. I mean, there's a lot going on there. You got to have the right partners. And the other challenge I think we've had is, so everybody works in San Francisco. They don't live there. So you got to have a network that answers, draw whatever it is now, people commuting 90 minutes. You got to draw a 90-minute commute mile it doesn't even look like a straight line. It's like a weird, probably by public transportation, like polygon fractal, I don't even know. And so you're dealing with, okay, now what's my answer to these people that are 60 minutes out and their healthcare? And these people are smart. These are not stupid people. So, hey, that's not a good product for me. Yeah, I know it's not. So we got enough members, we got 1,000 or something like that, 700. But if you don't really solve the puzzle, you can't expect that you're going to win the day. And I think our days of let's hope and pray, let's shoot a network out there and we'll see what happens. And I'm not saying that's how we did San Francisco. We tried in good faith. We tried to do a capitation agreement. We met with the major hospitals. It is going into the lion's den of competitiveness in healthcare. And so I don't think you can go in there casually. And I think we'll wait a little bit longer and we'll go back at it like we do with a lot of markets, and that's fine. But it's a puzzle to solve with multiple layers.
So do you feel like our current process with the network strategy scorecard and how you decide to enter these markets now, do you feel like that's where it needs to be?
Well, I think the scorecard is an incredible innovation. That, without sounding arrogant, I don't think most health systems have this level of depth and thought in what they're doing. At the same token, ours needs a lot more work in terms of being real time, connecting to the actual panel data availability of the physician, scheduling connections. So it's beautiful, and then it's incomplete in terms of the evolution it needs to go through. But I do think this is the way to do it. And so therefore, we're just on the journey, and it's just early in that journey. And I just hope, I think maybe Cole waiting to come in, or those people, those are the people that whenever I go out and build a network, sell it, want more of those people to come in and keep investing in what we've built, because it is in my mind, it's a true differentiator. It just takes many iterations and layers and years and feedback of, hey, this specialty is completely screwy, we got to fix it, and we got to be excited for that discussion. And when we refine it to that level, you'll find we're a decade ahead of anybody, or they'll just try to buy us. Or they'll try to buy the people that built it, but then that won't work.
Cool. Let's go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.